At this point, I'm going to turn the floor over to Travis Steigerwalt, who's into the program. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. So, why me? Why Garnets? So I know we need a filler to cover this month's meeting, and since we've been going up to Connecticut for about 4 or 5 years now in New York, I started running into more and more Garnets and getting a little bit of interest. And another one of my hobbies is collecting various gemstones, so I got some cut Garnets up here. But I've often heard people say Garnets are just round, they're not that attractive, but then I realize a lot of people don't know, because we're in this iron area up here in Northeast where we get a lot of iron-based Garnets, which aren't the prettiest things, aren't the gemmiest things all the time. But there's other locations, other countries, where they're very gemmy, very expensive Garnets. And so I got into this, and amid that, I'll talk a little bit about this. I couldn't find a site that had all the information on one page that I wanted to know. How are Garnets formed? Where do they come from? What's the chemical makeup? So I had to go to variety sites and put all this stuff together on one site. So when I did this, I was always outside PowerPoint presentation mode, putting it all together. When I came tonight and did it, you started to see things fly in from the left or right. I'm like, so I apologize for that, because I didn't really set it up that way, and I never ran it through presentation mode before. But I've been with the club since about 2000, 2001, and every year it's getting better and better, and I'm enjoying more field trips and going further away all the time. But thanks, Tom brought in a bunch of his Garnets. Alex Emmerich brought some in. I think Mike Dunn put some back there for free giveaways if anybody picked them up. Is anybody here for the first time that just joined us from Mineral Fest? Oh, welcome. I was hoping we get some people from. I know a number of people signed up at Mineral Fest. They just didn't know if not everybody can make the meetings. Here we go. If you have any questions, this is going to be open discussion. I'm not an expert, so feel free to jump in here. So we're going to cover some Garnet tidbits first, where Garnets are found, what Garnets are used for. Tom has some nice displays back there of sandpaper grit back there. Colors of Garnet. Then we're going to get into a little midnight how Garnets are classified, and then a little bit the gemologist and the mineralogist views of Garnets. And one thing, the last category, so you think you know Garnets, some pictures in there are gonna blow your mind. It's not, Mother Nature, humans, we try to classify everything in nice, neat, orderly categories. It doesn't work that way with Mother Nature. She has her say. So, Garnet is birthstone for January, so there you go, any January people here. My wife is, celebrates the second year of marriage. And it got its name from Latin Garnets, which they say is similar to the Garnets they had. They were red and looked like seeds from pomegranates. So that's where it's believed where Garnets got its name. It's been popular as a gemstone for over 5,000 years. The Egyptians were great. They were using everything. They used lapis lazuli from Afghanistan 5,000 years ago. Garnets. So there's in a grave, they found this stylish necklace that shows it's 5,000 years old and shows how durable Garnets can be used in jewelry. You just don't want to be too rough with them. They're not as hard as diamonds, but we'll get into that in a second. And where's Greg getting a little ahead of here, the metaphysical stuff. It's a lasting symbol of friendship. I don't know what it does for your body, though, but...
We're going to find out.
Now, hardness. Now, look at that. 6.5, 7.5. There are no decimals in the Mohs scale, so how does that happen? I think it's 6.5. Well, when time you go home tonight, you'll learn how Garnets are made, but Garnets, we'll get into this a little more, it's not just a mineral. Garnets are made up of multiple minerals, and of course, iron, manganese, and some of that stuff are harder, and calcium is down here as a 3. So if you have a Garnet that's got some calcium in it, it might be down lower in a 6.5. So if you're trying to compare it to quartz and say, this isn't Garnet because it's not as, hard. It's not, Garnet should be up around 7, but but just bear in mind, and that probably goes for a lot of minerals in the Mohs scale. There could be some things that, a 7 might scratch something you think is 1, but because of the chemical makeup of it, there could be a little bit of play in that 6.5 to 7.5 type range with other things. So again, they're good for jewelry making. Okay, so where is garnet found? So generally around the world, in all types, in all the three main categories of metamorphic, igneous, and sedimentary. But most is found near the surface. Most that we find near the surface comes from sedimentary with high aluminum content, a shale that goes through the metamorphic process and becomes schist or gneiss. And then it's through the heat and the pressure that breaks those chemical bonds. I know Alex got into a lot of the atomic structure last month of those who were here, talked about a lot of the bonds. So when it recrystallizes, those valence bonds in an atom want to be stable. So a lot of times in metamorphosis, a stable element for some of the atoms is forming a garnet. It's stable as a garnet. So where you see a lot of metamorphic activity happen is where there's two tectonic plates forming. But there's more. So garnets can also be found in igneous rocks such as granite and basalt. And garnet can also be found in contact metamorphism. So what is contact metamorphism? So what I talked about, like the tectonic plates where metamorphism is happening, the contact, so where the heat and pressure in the main zone where it's becoming metamorphic material, where it's becoming gneiss and schist, well, as you get away from that and temperature cools a little bit, that's the contact zone with the sedimentary or other material on either side of that metamorphic zone. So that's what they mean by contact. So garnets can occur in a metamorphism, but they can grow, say, 100 feet this way or 10 feet this way out from where the main contact or main metamorphosis process is happening. But then it's also deep under the earth in magma chambers that can form and lava flows, deep source volcanic eruptions talks. And then we find that a lot in sedimentary because as the igneous and metamorphic mountain ranges and everything erodes, comes down your rivers and banks and settles and gets into the sedimentary, then over millennia and millions of years again, that sedimentary can harden, cement together again, and then we'll find it in sedimentary rock. And that's why, like I said, the garnet can last, and it can erode out of that igneous stuff, and you find the sedimentary same mineral years later because it's really resistant to corrosion. And that's what I was at Tom's house last week, and the giant garnets he's got back there, he has them out front in his yard. They'd be sitting on my shelf in my house, secure where nobody can take them. He's got so many rocks, he can wipe them, probably let him keep them in the house. Anyways, that's a little bit there. And a lot of this stuff, I'm getting general. If I got really detailed on a lot of stuff, I could talk for 2 hours. So a lot of this is just basic knowledge, make you smart. And if you like it, you're interested, you can go research it even deeper. And here's for Tom. This is where his big giant garnets this big came from. The world's largest garnets, according to the internet, comes out of the Barton Garnet Mine up in Gore Mountain up here in New York in the Adirondack Mountains. You see the size there from 5 to 35 centimeters common, or as big, average 10 to 18 centimeters. Now I threw on, that's the size of a basketball, 29.5 centimeters. So you're getting garnets this big coming out of New York up there in Gore Mountain. And real quick here, I'm going to let Tom jump in, and he's been up there, I guess, and has more information about this. But the largest garnet mine in the world is up there, North Creek, New York. It's operated by the Barton Mine Corporation, which supplies 90% of the world's garnet. And the Barton Mine Corporation is the first and oldest industrial garnet mining operation in the world, and the second oldest continuous mining operation in the U.S. under the same management. So, Tom, did you want to say anything about your garnets up there in Gore Mountain?
Well, just a word or two. Probably the one sample here that attracts the most attention, a couple of them, as they say about a lot of Canada samples of anything, size matters in Canada. Former president of the Birch Club would always describe a lot of Canadian minerals as Canadian gravel. Don't call them minerals. There's some beautiful stuff up there. But these are probably the most unusual garnets you're ever going to see. And if you look at them carefully and close, they're sort of ugly. Our first experience, most people, is that beautiful color of that reddish garnet with somebody's ring. Well, most of them even knows almandine is the name you want there. That confuses a lot of people. I got a couple samples of each back there. The almandine is the gemmy stuff. And I had an experience the other day that reminded me of what it can do. Not all garnet is up there in hardness, but some of it is actually harder than quartz. Now, quartz in one form, obsidian, has been known to give you the cleanest surgical cut you're going to get in your hand if you ever try to nap the quartz minerals. Garnet, almandine, the most gemmy stuff, coming from this Barton mine will do the same thing. I got a little slice of mine. You don't even know you get cut because even a knife of steel, if you looked under a microscope at it as a little nick in your hand or finger, will look like a saw did it. It shreds you microscopically, and it takes a while to heal. But the nappers who used the jasper and the sharp quartz found out how quickly it would heal because it's a very straight cut. Certain types of garnet will do the same thing. But anyway, these big ones, take a look at them. They're basically garnets that form and then roll down or work their way down some streams or slopes and sort of reconstituted themselves into these massive blobs of garnet. We have some back there, and these probably attract the most attention. They're unusual. Okay? The Barton mine, my first experience there was way back when. I just started teaching and had a chance to take a group of students with a big extended school van up to the Adirondacks. Now, the one half of the Barton mine is a garnet mine. The other half of it, maybe some of you heard of Whiteface, a ski area. Anyway, half the mountain's a garnet mine, half is a ski area. But anyway, we got up there, and the manager said, it's a way down there. And he said, if you don't mind using your van to shuttle some people down, you could pick up what you want along the way. There was a sample, probably half the size of a chair, with beautiful garnets in it. He said, you can get that in your van, you can take it back. Well, Fleetwood High School inherited the biggest garnet I ever picked up. There wasn't a single one, but it had some beautiful ones in it. Anyway, we got a very good description here of what you can come across in the garnet business. Take a look at some back there. All we're trying to do here is to show you a couple varieties. A lot of people don't realize how many varieties of garnets there are in the way of color and different characteristics. Thank you.
All right. No, thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. It's always good to get someone here that's been to these places and knows a lot more than I do. Okay, so where have we found garnets? I'm just going to real quick some things. My first experience with garnets was in Ogdensburg, Sterling Hill by Franklin. Came across just some brownish rock, and then a little bit later I found one that had faceted sides, and I got a lot more quickly interested and started looking for garnets. But Shillington Road Cut, anybody's familiar with Shillington in Berks County? And I was with former President Dick Beeling, and we were going to Kurt's Quarry on a trip many years ago, and I can only assume he got the word from Tom or Greg or somebody that there's garnets in the 222 road cut that they're doing construction when they extended 222 from the road to nowhere on. So it was in some greenish, like schistose material. Some of the other stuff I showed Dan Kilpatrick, he described it as pudding stone because it looked like a greenish conglomerate with nodules in it. But those of you who haven't been to Hewitt, we've been going up there like 4 times, so you should have some spessartine. And you also hear called spessartite, some nice orangish gemmy looking garnets. And the biggest one I ever found up there is maybe like a 1/4 inch, but they're nice orangish looking ones. Yeah. The Connecticut Garnet Trail, my sister lives in Connecticut, and with us going up there on a trip, you can go on the internet and find, just Google the Kinetic Garnet Trail, and it's got about 10 locations where you can go on your own to collect garnets. Unfortunately, the guy does a great job with it, but he doesn't tell you where to park. I had to research myself, where I could find a park. In some places there were no good places to park, with some places there was a parking lot there. But at Queen's Palace, this is probably a specimen not many people ever have. And if anybody ever finds out, I might have to return it or go to jail. But when I was in Afghanistan, I was in a forward operating base in Darulaman, outside, about 30 minutes outside of Kabul. Now, a lot of people don't know that Afghanistan used to have a king and a queen, and this is the Queen's Palace there. And it's after Russia left Afghanistan, it was destroyed. The palace, it's still standing, but everything inside was all beautiful marble. There's not much left. I got a nice piece of green marble too. But this was a wall going all around the perimeter, and I'm like, that looks like shit. And I'm like, there's garnets in here. Somehow it fell into my backpack, and it's hard getting some of that stuff through customs, but you gotta hide it well. And this weekend I'm going to the Massachusetts trip, and the Betts Manganese mine. There's garnets there, so I'm hoping to find some garnets there. But I know, Jake, what do you got? Wissahickon, there's places out. Anybody else?
Oh yeah, Wissahickon Valley Park in Philadelphia is loaded with them.
There's Avondale Quarry.
Oh, absolutely. There's some good tourmaline in there too.
My garnets are from Wissahickon.
What I don't think I have on here, Dane and I, when we were at Crystal Grove a number of years ago, it was snowing. You remember that, Pete? We had snow flurries. We were there like April or something. Dane and I said, this is too cold. We took off, went up to Hooper Garnet Mine, which is right next to the Barton Mine. And it's so easy to find garnets. You got to park at a tennis court. You got about a half-mile walk up. But if you just want to find garnets, you're going to find, garnets like every rock's got loaded. Every rock you pick up loaded with quarter-inch garnets. You have to hunt a little bit more for bigger ones, but it's so easy, great for kids, to pick up garnets there. For that. Okay. All right. So what are garnets used for? Of course, we talked about jewelry and ornamentation stuff. Tom's got the example back there. He's got garnet sandpaper back there and different grits in his little containers back there. And I didn't know this until I started doing research for this slide, but where I used to work, we had a water jet cutter cut through 2-3 inches of stainless steel. And I thought it was just water. I didn't realize until they actually can put garnet in with the water to help cut through that steel a lot easier. And then powders, skid-resistant road material, paints, concrete filler. And you'll see this a little more as I get further on and talk about all the minerals that make up varieties of garnets. But an indicator for mineral exploration. So if you find garnets type that has manganese in it, okay, what all minerals are associated with manganese? If you find garnets with, say, chromium or aluminum or something else, it might indicate what other type of minerals you might find in that area. So that's what it means by an indicator for people exploring. Like Dick Beal used to be one of our past presidents. He worked for some of the coal companies as he would go out and determine claims and look at their claims and try and see what, if it was worthy of the company buying a lease and mining. So I hung around him a lot because he could look at the lay of the land and tell me, okay, this. He knew from many other mineral clubs. He was in the Franklin Club too. He was a past president of the Franklin Club as well. And so he could really look at some of this stuff and tell me, okay, this is probably where you're going to find in this area. So when you get good at doing this stuff and think of a lot of locations and know what could be there, those indicator minerals can, if you're not familiar with everything, they can lead you on to other things you can find there. And here's another shocker thing there. Cleansing and energizing stone for peace and happiness. So, I go to some of these antique malls now. I see people selling a lot more of the polished stuff for chakras and stuff like that, along with different, what do we call them, oils, essential oils and things like that. So that's a popular thing that some people are getting into. So there's also synthetic garnets. Like most gemstones, we can make garnets, can be man-made. And this is one, they call this YAG, yttrium aluminum garnet. I just wanted to show you that be familiar that things can be man-made. So by the time you get done with this presentation, hopefully it interests you in garnets, but because we still haven't gotten into the good stuff yet. But just be careful when you go out on eBay. You know, be careful where you're buying things from because they can fake. You can be buying glass. I'm telling you, it's garnet. So if it's a cheap price and it looks very gemmy, this is a nice Savorite garnet. Usually pretty gemmy, a little pricey. But if you see something like that for like $20, it's probably not real garnet. But prices do vary, so always just look for a trusted person to buy from. And once you get hooked up with somebody, but then this is interesting because it's used as a lasing medium in lasers. Now I don't know what type of laser. This one here talks about surgery like type things for your skin, dentistry, minor laser, not probably high power lasers. Alex, you look at me like you got a lot of information there. Your scientific mind, I see it spinning.
No, it's a solid state laser, basically. I got mirrors on either side, bouncing light back and forth.
Yeah, I'm in the military. We had a lot of lasers there, but we'd have to recharge the lasers out, and it looked just like a little thicker than like a magic marker. It was a long red thing. And now I look back, I always wonder if that was garnet or what that material was. That a laser is only good for so many lasers, and it loses its power, and then we have to replace the inside sometimes. So our military mostly uses it for, like I was a tanker, we used the lasers for automatically gaining the distance to the target, and the gun tube could elevate to hit the target based on a laser. But I wish I knew what kind of material was in those lasers now that I know about garnets being used. Okay. So garnet structure. This is one I'm not going to get too deep into. I'm not going to get into all the atomic structure and different valences and orbits of the electrons, but isostructural means they all share the same basic crystal structure. It's often described as a small circular ball of garnet atoms. So they all kind of have that same general shape, but at least the different crystal shapes. Like, you guys familiar with calcite? I believe there's over 600 forms of calcite. Now, garnet isn't quite that crazy, but there's different forms of garnet, and I'll show you a little bit more here. But a lot of it are generally produced symmetrically, but you'll see there's some stuff in that's just mass in the rock. You just see brown stuff all over. It doesn't have real good crystal structure. So the main crystal shapes are dodecahedral and trapezohedral, which are types of polyhedrons. And so there's a dodecahedral on the left, and I'm not sure, I didn't write down what type of garnets those are, but we're going to get into more garnet colors and stuff soon. And there's a trapezoid. This is a typical garnet shape. When I think of garnets, it's more the trapezohedral. I don't find too much cube stuff around here when I've ever gone collecting, but it doesn't just kind of like a cube, and it almost can look like a little like fluorite a little bit if you're not sure what you're looking at for the first time. But those are the two main shapes. Okay. Now, colors are garnets. Now, I put this one on purpose because I mentioned before, this is a lot of people think this is what garnet, the reddish, brownish, not too attractive. Now, that's a really nice piece. I know everybody I know is going to take that home any day. Now, this is I'm going to go float back a little bit sometimes between gemmy stuff, gemologist view, and more of a mineral stuff, mineralogist view. But, so, of course, most people, this is right in the internet too, most people think garnet is a reddish brown. So, what we got up there, starting in the upper right, now we're going to start learning some names here. The red almandine, and on the right we got green savorite, that's the one I just held up here a little while ago. Where did I leave off? And then you got the yellow moly, orange spessartine, for those of you that hew it. Ours seem a little bit brighter orange than that one there that we found. We got the pink one here, the pink fillet from Tanzania, and on the bottom, that's a real nice green mint, or Marilani mint. Then you go to the next one over, there's a pyrope and the demantoid, and the purple one is the rhodolite. I have a rhodolite one up here that's actually cut in the gemstone. It's hard to see back there, but you can look at them afterwards. But most of these here are really gemmy ones, or you see it come from Africa. that gives you an idea of like what you can buy for jewelry for your significant other. Prettier, maybe cheaper than diamonds. But here's a color chart I really like. Now, they basically run almost all the colors, from the reddish and browns at the top down to the yellows, different shades of each color, yellows and different shades of green. Not so much purplish, you don't really see bluish, but I will tell you there is a color changing garnet that is blue. Last month, remember Alex mentioned alexandrite, the color changing mineral? Very similar. I looked up prices of cut into a gemstone, color changing blue garnet. I ranged from like $2,000 up to $16,000. So garnets can be more pricier than some diamonds. And by the way, before we could make man-made diamonds, a lot of garnets throughout history were cut to resemble diamonds until we made cubic zirconia and what's the other diamond you can make with an M? With an M?
Moissanite.
Moissanite, that's it. So there's a good idea. So we're not just a reddish colored brown garnets like. Okay, here's a little bit of how we're going to learn some of the names and a little bit minerals about them. So garnets are not just a single mineral. They're groups of chemical compositions. So when you go into Mindat in the search bar, type garnet, it's going to take you to the page that says the garnet group. It's not going to take you to garnet, it's going to take you to the garnet group. But here's what I said. This is just saying, this is not the prettiest garnet, but it's going to remind me of the first one I ever found. This is Franklin Marble in Sussex County, New Jersey, not far from Ogdensburg, where I found my first garnet of that variety. So one of the things I'm trying to do with these slides is throw in some different pictures, give you an idea of different types of garnets. Now we're getting into the semi-scientific where I'm not going to dwell super deeply. But so every garnet, a garnet is a silicate, SiO4, with two other elements. And they call these two other elements, they call it the X position and the Z position. And N is how many atoms. Like there's 4 oxygen atoms for every silicon. These N's can vary with each mineral. It doesn't always have to be the same number. And that's what's going to give variety of all the different colors we see as you'll see what types of minerals go in it. So there's the garnet group. So the two main garnet groups and classifications are pyrospite garnets, and these all have the aluminum in the Z position when the atoms, the way the atoms are oriented in their helixes and shapes and valences, and I'm probably saying some of that stuff wrong. But when the aluminum is in the Z position, it's going to be a pyrospite garnet. When there's a calcium in the X position, it's going to be a ugrandite type garnet in those groups. So now, just want you to be familiar with it. You don't have to remember the names or anything. The better stuff is still coming. So the pyrospite and the ugrandites, the calcium ones and the aluminum ones, are kind of broken into 6 main groups. Now this is what I want you to take out of this. So in Mindat, that's why I put Mindat to remind me where I got some of this stuff from. Mindat and Gemdat, they both kind of agree on that there's 6 main categories of garnets. So as you see the top 3, these all have aluminum in the Z position. So these top 3 are the pyrospite group, almandine, pyrope, and spessartine. And the bottom 3 all have calcium in the X position. So you see, those will all be the ugrandites, the androdites, the grossular, and the varolites. So if you look at, in petrological use, the garnet refers to these 6 minerals. So I had to explain this because I don't even know what petrological exactly is. So their guys are the petrology people. They're the ones into the science of the chemistry, the makeup of the individual atoms, and all that concerns the composition of the rocks. Then you got the geologists. They're into the plate tectonics, the core, the mantle, magnetic field, and things like that. And then mineralogy, they just study all minerals. And most of us here, this is actually the definition I got off of the internet, of Google. We are rock hounds, the person that collects rocks and minerals. And then I added all the above. We play and dabble in all the different categories, but pretty much we're all rock hounds. Jake is the king of calling us rock hounds. you ever go on his spots find group, he's always calling us hounders. So, but you'll see they throw some other minerals in there, and we're going to get into a little bit more. Okay, so here's the pyrospikes again. And I picked one specimen. Now there's many types of almandine colors. Again, many types of protein colors and the various shades. But I just threw one sample of each in there. So almandine are mostly iron and aluminum. It's the most common gemstone garnet there is. And deep red color that Tom mentioned there, and it's abrasive industries. Pyrope, they contain magnesium, and they're almost always a deep red. And I see it like this a lot, where they're not always great polyhedron structure. A lot of them look like they're almost weathered or something like that, but I believe that's the way they form a lot of times. So they can get almost black in color, it says there. And the vivid color of pyrope garnet is attributed to the amounts of chromium. Last month, for those you weren't here last month, Alex talked all about how minerals get their colors, and basically a lot of stuff with the electrons and the different elements in there, how they're arranged to create colors. And specialty garnets, they've got the manganese in the X placement, and they're usually orange in color. So here are the euchromites, the one with the calcium in them. So again, there's another specimen of each category. So the androdites have calcium and iron together. They perform most of the highly sought after garnets, such as this bright green mantle. The grossular garnets, they have several varieties, quite a few varieties, but I threw these off by putting a violet kind of colored one in there. So, and then the savarites are in that grossular group there, and they can also come brown, yellow, red varieties. And then the euvarobite, again, they're bright green, and they don't get very big. Now, you often don't find these euvarobites in large size that you can fasten, but because they're so gemmy, they're translucent almost, and they're really expensive and highly sought after if you find a nice size one. Any questions so far? I'm just hitting a lot of highlights here. But this is something I'm not going to get into, but I wanted to show you there is way more than those 6 categories of things that you can get to. This is something called the garnet supergroup. I came across, we just said there's 6 varieties of garnet. Middat's kind of our Bible as collectors we use. But there are other people one thing I came across said there's 15 varieties of garnet. But I really couldn't find any information to say what these 15 garnets are. But this is the closest thing I found. But you can see all the different minerals in some of these things and all the different special names and that's just the name of groups, not individual garnets. But these petrology people can really break this down in a structure. So if you're into garnets a little bit more and like what you're hearing, you can do some more research and a deeper dive into other types of garnets that you might come across on the internet when you're looking to buy something. Say, Travis didn't cover this one. What's this one? Well, because it might be, like I said, Mother Nature throws curveballs to those 6 main categories and can add other minerals in there that give it those pretty colors. So that's just a little bit. So not just a little bit the gemologist and the mineralogist, not too fancy, but there are some similarities, but there are some differences between like GemDat and MinDat. So this is what I say, when you go to MinDat and type in garnet, this is the home page it'll take you to. Now the pictures change every so often, but it takes you to what you call the garnet group, a group of related mineral species. Again, it's not its own mineral per se. And this is the GemDat page. When you go into GemDat, for those who've never been in a GemDat, it's to show you that exists. And sometimes it's nice to go in and compare what one site says versus the other site, see where they differ, and see where they are similar. And again, in GemDat work, they break down our main categories, like there's almandite, they talk a little bit more about the iron aluminum bar, but then some of the things you'll see, like the almandite pyrope, they have special names that are like rhodolite. I have a rhodolite cut one up here. And I think Colorado's a good place where they find the rhodolite garnets. Then the androdite, you see there's some common garnets in the androdite group, which I mentioned at the Mantoid. There's one called melanite, tulipazolite. A lot of them are named because of the colors and what they might resemble. There's an androdite. Now you start seeing things overlap. Here's where it gets really confusing, and that's why I'm not going to get too deep into it. So we talked about those 6 main groups, and their androdite and grossular were their own groups. But now Mother Nature throws curveballs in there and starts mixing different elements into it, and they classify it as both an androdite and a grossular garnet. So those 6 groups can intermingle and overlap with each other. So you see it down here again. There's a pyrope with its own group and spessartine with its own group. But when you put certain minerals together, they don't know exactly how to classify it, so gemologists will call it a pyrope spessartine group. So depends who you're talking to and where they got their experience from. If they're more on the gemology side, if they're more on the MINDAT side, on which terminology you might hear people talking. So it's like you got a liberal and a right-wing person, you put them together to talk about Trump and Biden, they're not going to agree. So just know where the other person's coming from if they disagree with you. It could be a gemologist. And there's also, those were .org, so this is a .com one. This is a gemology project. This one really differs than GemDat. This one goes a little off the realm of what I've been saying about those 6 groups. And here's a little bit, sorry, I won't get too much about that other public domain group, but the Gemmy garnets here, like I said, all the members are rarely found. Garnets are rarely found in ideal where you got that SOI4 and the exact 50% of that X and 50% of that Y element. A lot of times it's 10% of this element, 90% of this element. That's why it's this color. It'd be 40 and 60 and things like that. So that's what makes them fall into these different groups. And the word, that's the term isomorphous series. They change quite a bit, intermingle. But most gem quality garnets that the gemologists consider where you can cut into gemstones for jewelry, they classify by these 5 groups. So if you're a gemologist and really want the jewelry thing, you might want to go to the Zales or go down here to the Lehigh Valley Mall and be able to talk circles around those people. Tell them, I want to buy a pyrope almondine garnet. What do you got? You know, they're going to look at you like, what? So you can really talk circles, maybe get the price down or something. Okay, but yeah, that's so, again, this is how gemologists view ones that you're going to use for jewelry and cutting for gemstones. So I just wanted to make you aware, like I said, of the differences between GemDat and MINDAT. And again, just be aware of more stuff. This is called the gemologyproject.com. They're trying to classify things. We talked about 6 groups here. They got about, was it 8 groups here, I think. I'm just showing you. So again, here's another guy. Even the gemology people disagree on how things should be named. There's a general rule where some people saying it's 50. They go by 50. If it's 50% of one mineral and 50% of another, it should be named this. And I got other guys saying, no, if it's 30 by 70%, it should be named this. So the gemologists don't even agree with each other. So if you see 2 gemologists, you can say, which rule do you follow? The 50-50 rule, the 30-70 rule, and get them arguing with each other. And you can walk away with a smile. Now this is getting to the end. I'm almost done here. But so I gave you a lot of the basics, but like I said, Mother Nature puts a lot of twist and does a lot of fancy things that blows our mind. So I'm just going through a couple slides of some pictures of some things you're not going to be expecting. A star garnet. You guys ever see star sapphires like that? So garnets can display asterism. So, and this is just a nice, pretty demantoid garnet. Like this is one the Dutch called. Named it basically because it looked like they would cut it for a diamond, like I said before. You could make synthetic diamonds, but that's how that one got its name. It's just a nice pink pyrope garnet. You don't see many pink garnets, so I thought that was pretty. But the next one, luminescent synthetic garnets. For Mike Dunn, you're gonna take that back to the Franklin Club. Let's get some synthetic fluorescent garnets. So again, they're manly stuff, but the bottom one I really like. That is a diamond with pink garnet included inside the diamond. How cool is that? I don't know what the price is at. I don't even want to know. Beyond my price of things. There's another form, kind of like asterism. This is called trapeche. This one comes from Vietnam, and it's got that weird, like, kind of cross-type pattern in there. And there's a sapphire that has a garnet included, and at the bottom is a garnet with apatite included in it. So I've never come across a garnet in my collecting that had any inclusions or anything. I think I got one or two more slides. And forget what I said about polygons and the shapes of garnets, because that top one throws everything out. That is a pseudomorph. You hear a lot of pseudomorphs, especially with like pyrites and some other things. But that is a gastropod, a garnet that formed inside a gastropod shell on the top there. So the next one, they can have fluid included, like in hydro. There's water, probably water, but it could be some other chemical solution inside there. So they can be like that. And you might see a lot of Asian women that have some of those green bangles on. They look like jade, but I learned may not be jade. They could be a hydroglossular garnet that looks like jadeite or something. So, very unique stuff that these garnets can do. Yep. And again, these are just most of the references I used. Like I said, all this stuff was in a variety of sites. I could not find one site that had all the information that we just went over. So you really, again, with any mineral that you want to learn about, you have to do your own research, because MinDat has some basics there, but then it gets way two-sided. The more you scroll down the screen, the more it gets crazy for me, and I lose interest. I just want to see the pretty pictures and know what the chemical makeup is and where I can find it. But so that's about it. Any questions? That concludes my presentation. But I have some. Oh, I forgot to show you some of my stuff up here. I know. Let's show you this. So this is garnets and graphite from. I can't remember the name of the mine. I bought this for about $70. The Red Embers mine. I know Alex knows about the Red Ember mine. This guy goes in graphite. He goes in with like a wet saw, cutting it out. He's got a respirator on, and then he cleans them up really nice. And you put a backlight to them, and you get some. Everybody see that? Very strange color. And he took them to the Tucson show one year, about 3 or 4 years ago. He had some big plates this size, sold for thousands of bucks, and his prices have been going up since. His stuff is really sought after.
He's at some of the local shows.
Is he?
Jason Baskin.
Yeah, that's his name. He's very good. I texted him, and he texted me right back, and I went back and forth with him a couple times on looking at different specimens until I found one that I settled on.
He slices them thin, and then he uses a glass cabinet with a plastic media to expose the garnets.
Yep, he has some.
Both sides.
What's his name again?
Jason Baskin.
Yeah, you can find some videos he has online and how he does it.
Flemington. He owns a regular jewelry store in Flemington.
This is the Hewitt. I don't know how good this lights it up. This is the Hewitt Gem specialty garnets in the sugary albite.
Yeah.
Again.
Pictures.
Yeah, this is the gemmy green samarite. This is the Shillington road cut. What else here? I got some green grossular, not the prettiest ones, but they're real light minty green grossular. The shapes aren't like perfect polyhedrons, but they come from the Wawa Mountains out in Utah. Then I got some. I'm guessing this is up in New York somewhere. I don't have the location where I got this one, but I do have one from the Hooper Garnet Mine. And somebody else bring in some today from the Hooper Garnet Mine?
Michael Compton.
Okay, it was Mike, the one, free giveaways he gave from the Hooper Garnet. But then this one here is a gemmy. This is a hessonite cut gemstone. This is a savarite one that's, I like my green one, it's natural, and then here's a cut one. And this is a rhodolite garnet. And I believe these come from Colorado, the rhodolite ones, nice purplish ones. But all right, that pretty much concludes my stuff. And then for those of you who didn't hear me, for anybody's interested in Herkimer's, the first row is from Diamond Mountain, where we're going to go, and the second row is Mohawk Valley Miles. I've been there a few times. That's it.